Hey there, Steve Rubis with another installment of Capital Markets Investor Relations in 2 minutes or less. Today, we're going to do a discussion of the IR job market structure based on second quarter 2025 data. Now, if you looked at our previous presentations on the job market, this data will be slightly different because I went back and audited the underlying data so it would look a little more scientific. With that, I hope there's some good takeaways for you and that you enjoy the presentation. So the first slide, in case you don't want to watch, these are the key takeaways. And again, in the first half of 25, it's clear that tariffs were negatively impacting the job market, especially as you got into April and May. You were seeing some disruption and pause in the market because of tariffs. When you look at conversion rates, and again, conversion rate tracks my ability to have the next conversation after getting through the application gatekeeper. And what you saw in the first quarter is my rates have never been this bad, only about 2.4%, 2.5%. And then in the second quarter, we got back to 16%. But in terms of the first half, we're only at 8.1%, which is well below historical norms and well below the pandemic peak of about 21.5%. Again, in the second quarter, conversion strength was driven by less opportunity, but more conversations, which is not indicative of a healthy job market or healthy job structure. And what we would say is that the IR job market kind of peaked in March on both all levels and number ones, and there was a trough, especially in number one opportunities in May. We hadn't seen that low a number of opportunities in over a year. So again, and in June, we're seeing a recovery here in the back half of June. So let's get into the actual opportunities and what the structure looks like. And when you look at the second quarter for all levels of IR, we declined 31% year over year, but on the two-year stack, we were up about 17%. And I think the data illustrates there's some uncertainty here due to tariffs, and you're seeing some deterioration in the market due to tariffs. Now, when you look at the market going back to January 23 and look at everything by month, the all-level opportunity set really didn't deteriorate nearly as bad as what we're going to see in the number one opportunity set. We're well below the peak of August of 24 and the summer of 24, but we've been stable through most of the year. Again, there's some uncertainty here because of tariffs, and I think that's why you've seen the reduction, but we're seeing an increase in June. And the key here is there's been a decent amount of movement here in the back half of June that's not captured here because this deck was initially created on June 17th. So let's look at number one IR job opportunities. And what we see here is the market declined 27% year over year in the second quarter. And then you look at the two-year stack, we were flat between 2Q25 and 2Q23. Again, tariffs are the driver here of the weakness. When we look at the data going all the way back to January 23, again, you see the impact here in May of tariffs, the uncertainty in the market. We saw a decline from March into April into May. And what's interesting here is we're seeing a recovery in June. Partly the IPO market is opening, and partly you're seeing less uncertainty around tariffs, and a lot of that resolving itself with the market essentially at all-time highs. We're hoping to see a continued rebound into the back half of the year. So now let's look at our conversion data for both all IR levels and the number one level. So again, you're seeing a little bit of weakness here. We were below the quarter average of 52 opportunities, just slightly below. So again, the all levels are doing slightly better than number ones. We haven't been this bad since first quarter of 24. And the conversion rate, this is more appropriate in terms of the number ones. I don't convert very well in terms of managers or directors or anything below a VP level. So now let's get into the number one IR opportunities. And you saw greater weakness here in that we were only at about 32 opportunities for the quarter in second quarter 25, which is back to first quarter 24 levels or second quarter 23. And, I think there's a lot of uncertainty here due to the tariffs. There was that pause in May, and we're seeing a recovery in June. When we crunch the data for the full month of June here in the next week or two, it'll be interesting to see if we get above that 35 opportunity mark. I think we will. I actually think we might actually get back to this 42 number when all is said and done. Now, my takeaway is I don't know how legit some of these jobs are that are being posted because, again, I feel like people are collecting resumes. I'm not converting to a conversation, so I don't know who is. And when I've talked to other IROs, I don't feel that they're converting these into conversations either. So let's look at the conversion rates on these discussions. And again, conversion rate is merely the idea that got through the gatekeeper and had the next conversation. These are not tracking things where I go through a process or get to an offer. And in the first quarter, that conversion rate was awful. It was only about 2.5%. Second quarter rebounded because we were at about 16%. But for the first half, we were at 8.1, which is really low. And we haven't been this bad since probably the fourth quarter of 2017 when we first started tracking this data. So in the next slide, we're going to look at that historical conversion data. And you can see in the first half of 25 at 8.1%, we're well below 24 at 13.6. We're well below 2023 at 15.7. And we're really below the pandemic peak of 21.4. The last time we were below double digits was again in the fourth quarter of 2017 when we were only at about a 4.9% conversion rate. And I had only been in one IR seat at that time. So my conversion rate was not as strong as say, some of the years since. So if you're an IRO who watches this, would love to get in touch, hear what you're hearing or what you're seeing in the market. If you're an executive recruiter, happy to walk you through the data and let you know who some of the opportunities are that are out there in case you need to do some cold calling. Thanks for watching.